Hi there, and welcome to Middle Class Film Class Podcast. Today I'm your host, Peter.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Joseph.
And today we landed on my pick, The Wheel of Destiny, The Bridge on the River Kwai.
The adventure they'll all be talking about, as long as the motion picture screen has the power to thrill, to excite, to amaze. The winner of 7 Academy Awards and 27 International Awards. From the makers of Lawrence of Arabia, The Bridge on the River Kwai.
All right, so it's good to be back on mic with you guys.
Yeah.
It's been a week.
Yep.
It's
been a week.
How's life? Any exciting stuff going on?
I don't know, not really, I guess. But there is something exciting going on, and that is did you guys know they're making a Matrix 4?
I've seen some rumors.
Yeah, I heard.
I couldn't tell if it was just like clickbait or not.
No, it's true. The Wachowski sisters
It's happening.
are now writing, directing, and producing a new installment in the Matrix universe. I don't know how they're really going to. I don't know how this is gonna go. Yeah.
Are you scared about this? Are you cautious about this?
I'm cautiously optimistic, and I only say that because it's the original creators coming back to it. So I mean, the first Matrix was definitely I would say a decade-defining movie, and I think the Matrix 4. For our listeners and you guys, if you guys watch the Matrix series, you know, like they many times in the story they allude to this event happening over and over again.
Yeah. Zion is in repeatedly being rebuilt and then destroyed by the machines, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Like a time loop.
It's I mean, if you're like really super deep into it, you can read into it more on like why this is happening. So I think the Matrix 4, I would have to say it's probably going to be more or less the same thing, but I really hope this is like a final movie, like it's a finale, like that someone breaks the cycle, like truly breaks the cycle. And I think there's a lot, like they could do like actually a 2-part movie would be really good for this sort of idea that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Matrix 4.
You should pitch your idea to them.
I should.
You send them an email.
I'm sure they have no ideas. They probably just said, "Hey, let's make a Matrix 4." No plot, no ideas. They're waiting for a fan to approach them and pitch the ideas to them.
That's how they handled the new Star Wars sequel trilogy. So. And then also in other news, Todd Phillips, director of The Hangover 2 and also director of The Joker. This is kind of funny. He didn't know Joaquin. I was reading the story, and he didn't know Joaquin Phoenix was going to be the Joker until he showed up for like the dress rehearsal.
Who did he think it was going to be?
What?
That's what I want to know. I don't think he really did know. Let me see here. I can't remember. I only thought it was funny that he didn't know it was Joaquin Phoenix at the time. It's like, who did like?
Oh, yeah. I just saw this.
Yeah.
Todd Phillips didn't know Joaquin Phoenix agreed to star in Joker until he showed up for wardrobe.
Oh, he thought they threw him out like as like a stretch goal for an actor, and they didn't think they were going to get him, but then he agreed and showed up.
It was kind of like this was like Phillips. Like this was Todd Phillips. It was like his hope that he would do it, but he kind of was just like, oh, you know, like it's Joaquin Phoenix. If he doesn't show up, he doesn't show up. I'm sure my people can find someone good. And then I guess he just showed up one day and was like, all right, let's do this.
Huh.
And
if you were making a movie about the story of your own life, who's your first choice to play yourself?
Ryan Gosling.
Joseph?
Shit, I've never actually thought about this.
Dave Navarro.
Dave Navarro.
Your second cousin.
Yeah. It has to be. They have to be in the acting business.
I'd say Gabrielle Sidibe for me, star of Precious.
Oh, I was like, wait, who's that?
We get confused. Yeah, no, people confuse us all the time.
So yeah, those are just my news stories. The Matrix 4 was really what like caught my eye this week. I was just like, what the fuck?
I will definitely see that in theaters.
Yeah, same.
On the topic of Joker, you brought it up coincidentally. Joker, directed by Todd Phillips, starring Joaquin Phoenix, is coming to DVD on Tuesday, the 17th of December.
Oh shit!
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, it's
Holy hell.
very exciting. A little late in the game. I already gave my Christmas list. Everybody I know who would get me gifts.
I didn't get a list.
Well, I didn't get a list from you either, Tyler.
Both got you guys something, and it's the same thing. Socks.
Yes.
Nice.
Just kidding.
My friendship is a gift to you all. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. That's.
But also, in movie news, the Golden Globe nominations were announced, and there was a massive snub of
The Lighthouse, right?
The Lighthouse.
Oh, Jesus.
Literally nothing. No awards for The Lighthouse. All these damn foreigners who don't know nothing about horror movies.
Is that what the Golden Globes differentiates them from the Oscars?
Yeah, because
Is
it's
that
the Hollywood Foreign Press.
foreign press. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I'm like,
I feel like
I'm convinced Robert Eggers is blacklisted in Hollywood like lightweight, because there's no way that after making The Witch and The Lighthouse, like how
But at the same
is
time,
he not getting industry recognition?
At the same time, he was asked to do Nosferatu right after
Mhm.
The Witch, and that's a pretty big, that's a big flex, I think.
Yeah.
To be offered that, that's such an iconic Hollywood movie, from historically.
Yeah.
That
And
they wouldn't give that to just some dude that they hated.
Just
you know?
some guy like they did with The Last Jedi. They
Uh,
just gave it to some guy.
some
but
Abrams.
But yeah, but nothing for not even a supporting actor for Willem Dafoe, who basically is the star of the show.
Oh yeah.
I'd probably call him the lead.
Yeah,
You
I
think
mean,
so? You
I mean,
think-
story-wise, it's Robert Pattinson is the protagonist.
Yeah, it's set from the perspective of Pattinson,
Mhm.
but I mean, Willem Dafoe has the majority of the lines, majority of the screen time.
He's got a lot.
And
He's got all two of the monologues.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
But,
like
no, that's a damn shame. We'll have to boycott the Oscars if they don't. If there's no Oscar nominations.
For nothing. No.
This podcast is boycotting this Oscars.
Yeah, there's no technical awards in the Golden Globes.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a little bit more sense. I figured.
So it
but
would
still,
at
though,
least-
the,
it would just be-
caliber of Willem Dafoe's performance
Yeah.
in that movie, like that should have been something.
It would just be for directing and acting. I'm pretty sure that's it.
And best picture.
Yeah, directing, acting, and best picture, motion drama. Yeah, but yeah, it was not on the list.
Yikes.
That's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. It was such an original movie to come out in 2019. Especially, it came out with the movie Parasite as well, like pretty closely. And you had these two really original screenplays. Oh, I think Parasite definitely got into the Golden Globes, right?
Parasite, I think it got best director. Yeah. Bong Joon-ho nominated for Parasite, along with
Which is an incredible movie.
Todd Phillips.
Here's to you, Robert Eggers.
Pour one out for the homies. Oh, also a screenplay is a category.
Is a category.
Yeah.
It didn't even get original screenplay. Wow, that's
Well, there was no story there, so I get that I completely understand that snub.
Anyway, that's my movie news. DVD news. Joker's releasing on the 17th. This episode will have released after it has been released.
And the Lighthouse is coming out in, I think, for digital release end of December.
Yeah, I think so.
And then like DVD release early January, right?
Yeah, January 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
Got my pre-order.
Nice. I don't really have any like news or anything like that, but I did see. I'm not gonna name it my streaming pick or anything because I feel like anyone who wants to watch a Christmas movie is probably gonna watch it who has Netflix. But that movie Klaus, kids movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've been hearing a lot of good things about that movie.
Same, and so I watched it and just to see if the hype was real, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty damn good movie.
Wow.
Is it animated?
It's 2D animated, like classic Disney style, with a little bit more style to it. It reminds me of Emperor's New Groove, in a big way, probably because Jason Schwartzman plays the main. He's kind of the protagonist, but he's like a prick, which is just like Cusco from Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
And they have similar voices, and they have that snarky sort of attitude.
Yeah.
And their characters are drawn very similarly. So he also plays opposite a lumbering, kind of a sidekick, which is Klaus. But the whole story is not really like a Christmas love story. It kind of is supposed to explain how all this lore behind Santa Claus started.
Yeah.
And it does it in a way that I've never seen before. So it was pretty interesting. You're like, that's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And it's set in like a real world, not a fantasy world. So it's kind of cool.
Cool.
Yeah, interesting.
All right.
So speaking of streaming picks, do you guys have anything you want to recommend to our listening audience, whether it be Hulu, Amazon, or Netflix, or what have you?
I have one streaming pick, and then I have one that I'm afraid that might be a duplicate on this episode. So,
Like someone said it before?
no, like someone else might say it. I'm not
Oh.
gonna say who.
How would you know this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What clues have you gotten that would make you arrive to
Why
this
don't you
conclusion?
lead with that one? Because I'm curious now.
All right, so I'm okay. All right, cool. So, Friday the 13th happened a few days ago, and I get a text from Joseph while I'm drinking a beer over at a brewery, and he's like, "Oh, they're having a Friday the 13th sale," and I was just like, "Cool, I'm gonna go." So I
Wait,
go.
Who's having a Friday the 13th sale?
The tattoo shop.
Oh, yeah.
And so I go and I get my tattoo, we go get some drinks and come back and we watch this incredible movie, very iconic scene.
Oh.
Yeah. Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Streaming on Amazon.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's a...
Joseph, was this going to be your streaming pick?
No,
Did
it's not.
Tyler just steal this from you?
No.
Oh, perfect. Cool. So, yeah, definitely, that is my streaming pick. It is the movie that has the famous scene, Garbage Day. And he shoots down
a
a guy.
Gosh, that's that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from that movie. And it's
Silent
streaming.
Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really weird movie.
Yeah, it is.
Garbage Day.
And especially having the context of that line, too, it's such an out-of-place scene for the pacing of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's essentially, it's a kind of a confusing plot. It's about a guy who witnesses the murder of his family as a child by a Santa Claus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he gets sent off to like a Catholic adoption school, and he gets severely punished by the Mother Superior over there. It's kind of murky on like how he becomes a serial killer.
Yeah. Well, I assume that's in the first one.
It's true, probably.
Maybe, but I was thinking like this was like an anthology series too, because it offered
could be.
no hints on what the first one was about.
Yeah.
So that is a really good holiday movie to watch, like at like your friend's holiday party or something. It's a good.
Yeah.
It's really.
Is it appropriate to watch with grandma?
Well,
Yo,
I don't know.
tits.
I think grandma might like it. Yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 streaming on Amazon Prime. And for my next streaming pick, that was going to be the backup plan if someone already said this movie.
You could do two. Two's good.
So it's 1988's Akira. That's the animated, iconic animated movie directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. I think I'm butchering that name, but
Akira.
yeah, it's a really well done animated movie. It's about this guy who basically becomes like an alien sort of thing, and there's a bunch of
It's pretty
drama
iconic.
that happens. Yeah, the animation alone is worth watching this movie because you're like watching this and it's timeless. Like it feels timeless. It could have been made at any time, but this was made in 1988, so everything was like pretty much hand drawn for the most part.
Yeah.
Really stylistic kind of movie, and it'll give you some anime street cred to have this under your belt.
Is this for casual anime viewers?
I would say it's a pretty entry level animation
Yeah.
movie. Like if you're into animated Japanese films from that time, and so yeah, Akira is really it's very interesting to watch because there's always something going on in the background, and it's just the technique of the animation style is impeccable. And
it's just streaming on what now, Tyler?
Hulu is streaming on Hulu.
Oh, cool.
Awesome.
I've been meaning to watch this movie, but now I know where it is.
Yeah, it's on Hulu now, so you know.
Streaming on Hulu, Joseph.
Cool.
Yeah.
You picked it just for me.
What do you got, Joseph?
So I have it's kind of a twofer, not exactly two separate streaming picks. So on Netflix, you can watch them both on Netflix, I believe. One definitely, one I'm not so sure anymore. It might still be on there. So this is The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, a new series released earlier this year, which is a prequel to the Dark Crystal movie, which was made in the 80s, directed by Jim Henson, who also made Labyrinth. So the Age of Resistance is the story before the Dark Crystal, because if you've seen the Dark Crystal, you know that so there's this species of the Gelfling and the Skeksis and the Mystics, and in the movie there are only two Gelfling, but in the prequel it's like there's Gelfling galore. It's different empires of Gelfling, and the Skeksis are not seen as villains. The Gelfling look up to the Skeksis because they're seen as like these holy, like clergymen basically. And there's like a conspiracy that the Skeksis are up to no good, and this is about them, the Gelfling, a certain Gelfling, uncovering the secrets of what the Skeksis are up to and how it leads into the movie The Dark Crystal.
Oh, so it's like a prequel to The Dark Crystal?
Yes, Tyler, I said that in the very beginning of my...
Hey, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following, all right? You were saying some pretty far out things about Skeksis and how they look like human foreskins.
Yeah, so... Wait, what?
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen any Dark Crystal.
Okay.
The series, the movie. I don't know any of those words you just said.
Well, those are just the types of people that are in the movie. But yeah, it's basically an origin story of the Dark Crystal and how they arrived to that destination in the movie. That's what That's what the show is, and it's actually really interesting. It's still puppetry because
thank God.
Because the movie is puppetry. It's a little more advanced.
But the practical effects is still there.
It looks pretty true to the original movie.
Yeah, it's definitely all the character designs are the same, and it's got a pretty good cast. It's got Taron Egerton, we got Keegan-Michael Key, Simon Pegg, Benedict Wong, Mark Hamill, Ralph Ineson from The Witch, as we know, Lawnmower voice. Lena Headey.
It's kind of like everybody in that.
Yeah,
Jeez,
Anya Taylor-Joy, also from The Witch. Yeah, it's a pretty big cast with notable names.
Star-studded cast.
Yeah,
and it's a Netflix original.
Yeah, the show is a Netflix original.
The movie's streaming on Amazon and Netflix. I just looked it up.
Cool. But yeah, so if you haven't seen the movie The Dark Crystal, I urge you to watch it, and then watch the show. But because if you watch the show without watching the movie, a lot of it's not going to make much sense. But yeah, it's a very well made show.
So movie first, then show, even though it's a prequel.
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
I may give the movie a go because it's in my blind spot.
Yeah. The show, when you watch the movie and then you watch the show, the production quality is up there. It's like, because when you watch the movie, it's like, well, this was made in the 80s, and then you watch this, it's still puppets, but like the improvements we've made in modern technology with CG it just helps it so much. It elevates it to another level.
Awesome.
It's really fun learning about all the lore of the Dark Crystal world and the world of Thra.
Oh, Thra.
Yeah.
Hey, I just realized, Tyler, I forgot to ask you, did you watch The Birdcage?
No, I got confused and I watched Bird Box instead.
I can't tell if that's a joke or not, and I wouldn't be surprised either way.
No, it's I was about to say it's not a joke.
It's okay. It's okay. I was curious to see what your take on that movie was because it was such a off the wall gay comedy.
I was gonna watch it after the movie that we're about to watch, and I kind of got sidetracked because
if the Bridge on the River Kwai was the normal length movie, you probably could have watched them both back to back. But it's like watching two movies together.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
So, but I did see Bird Box though, and that was terrible. Don't recommend that.
My anti-streaming pick.
Yeah, my anti-streaming pick.
Oh, we're doing that now? Okay, so for my anti-streaming pick, I'm gonna say Six Underground, the Michael Bay movie, straight to Netflix. Don't watch that, but do watch a movie that's streaming right now on, let's see here, on Hulu as well, called The Clove Hitch Killer. It's from 2018. It's starring Dylan McDermott, Charlie Plummer, Samantha Mathis, and really not a whole lot of people you'd recognize after that, but it's the story of a almost too wholesome family. A young boy who's, I don't know, he's 16, 17, maybe about to turn 18, and he's getting ready to get his Eagle Scouts award, and his dad is the scoutmaster, ultra conservative, don't have a TV in the house, very, very, very straight-laced home. And the town, at the beginning, you find that the town was plagued, I don't know, 20-something years ago with a string of serial killers or serial murder cases done by the killer that they've dubbed the Clove Hitch Killer, who ties this very specific type of knot called the Clove Hitch outside of the home of the people who he kills. So through the movie, the son begins to think that the father is maybe the Clove Hitch Killer because he starts finding weird things in the shed and starts to feel like he doesn't know who his dad really is, and it gets a little bit deep. And I'd say the first 2 acts of the movie is a lot of build-up, and you don't really know where it's going to go or if it really is what you think it is, and it's kind of slow, kind of building the plot. But the third act is absolutely worth the watch because it kicks into a whole nother movie in the third act, and I laughed out loud and was like shouting in my living room at Bree. I was like, "Do you see this? It's happening! This is what I've been waiting for the whole time. The whole time I was waiting for something insane to happen from this like slow plotting movie, and it kicks in, and it was great. I was loving the whole thing. So give that a watch, and don't watch Six Underground.
Did you actually watch Six Underground?
I did not. I watched the trailer and said nope.
Oh, okay.
Would you say that the Clove Hitch Killer put it in H?
Yeah, he put it in H.
Put it in H.
No, it's a kind of a smaller movie. Most people probably haven't heard of. It's PG-13. It's not like super gritty or super gory or anything like that.
It's just like a really tense thriller almost.
Yeah, it's a good thriller, and it's funny it's funny for the people who have family members or other people in your life that are mirror this family. When you're just like, oh, it's just so perfect, and you can't even say heck, because that's the swear word or whatever. What the frick,
What the flip?
It's like, Donnie, you can't say frick. You know what that means,
We know what you really mean.
So, yeah, you know what you really mean. It's the same thing. So, Clove Hitch Killer, stream on Hulu.
Nice. Nice.
Cool.
All right, you guys get ready to get into this 2 hour and 41 minute long movie, The Bridge on the River Kwai?
Yeah, and just for our listeners, this is also going to be a 2 hour and 40 minute episode. We're going minute by minute.
Starting now. We're 27 minutes in.
That means I got to spend 4 hours and 82 minutes editing it.
Okay, so brief synopsis on Bridge. This movie was released in 1957, directed by David Lean, produced by Sam Spiegel, and Sam Spiegel's name was all over this, so he must have had some sort of cred in Hollywood at the time. He must have been a big name, because the movie's presented by Sam Spiegel. It's a Sam Spiegel production, blah, 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 and they barely mention the director at all. William Holden is the star, or one of the stars. He plays the U.S. Navy almost officer Shears. Alec Guinness as Colonel Nicholson. Jack Hawkins is made as I have in my notes. I have Jack Hawkins as Major Hawkins. I don't think that's right. That seems strange. Let's see here. Jack Hawkins as Major Warden. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's the British major. Mm-hmm. And then Susui Hayakawa as Colonel Saito. This was a instant success when it was released. Could be because of the timing of the release or the political motivations behind it, but at the Academy Awards in 1958, it won Best Picture, Sam Spiegel, Best Lead Actor, Alec Guinness, Best Director, David Lean, Best Writing for a Screenplay Adaptation, Pierre Boulez, Carl Freeman, and Michael Wilson, Best Cinematography, Jack Hildyard, Best Editing, Peter Taylor, Best Music and Score, Malcolm Arnold, and Best Supporting Actor, Susue Hayakawa. And as far as the screenplay adaptation writers, Carl Foreman and Michael Wilson both were on Hollywood's blacklist during like the McCarthy hearings. Yeah. So they actually fled the United States and went to the UK and were working in secret on this movie to complete it. So Pierre Boulez, he
took all the credit.
He did. When the Oscars came about, they listed him as the writer. And I think he was listed as the writer on the official credits on the movie too. And only after Carl Foreman and Michael Wilson died were they posthumously awarded the Oscar for that.
Isn't there a movie about this?
Is there?
I
was thinking that too, because after I watched the movie and did a little bit of research on like the making of it, I was like, man, there has to be a documentary on this. This is like a crazy.
Well, I think
scenario.
there's a biopic of, I don't know if it's of these writers, but I know I remember seeing each other for a movie. I think it stars Bryan Cranston.
I wouldn't be surprised. Bryan Cranston can play any historical white man.
Where he's like he's blacklisted. He's a writer. He plays a writer who gets blacklisted.
Yeah. I'm
I
not
don't
sure
know.
why the writers got blacklisted, because I know there was 2 writers who wrote this movie, and they were both blacklisted in Hollywood at the time. I'm not sure.
Trumbo was that movie.
Oh, okay.
That's not related to these people, but it's
This specific movie, but it's in the movement.
it was Dalton Trumbo. Trumbo was a Hollywood's top screenwriter until he and others were jailed and blacklisted for their political beliefs. So
What a weird time.
Hollywood strikes again.
that was in 1947.
Yeah.
Anyway, that just
So this-
reminded
so
me
this
of it.
Yeah, and this was 10 years later, so that must have been a pretty long stretch that the whole
Yeah.
Hollywood blacklist thing and the McCarthyism was around.
Yeah, for
Seems
sure.
like a really weird time in history, like something that probably should be talked about a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I
Like
think there's
Japanese internment camps in America. That's like
Yeah,
it's such a stain on
I
like
know.
American history.
We always
It
seem
never
to
gets talked
we
about.
always seem to forget about it.
Yeah. Well, let's just forget about that.
yeah, yeah.
That didn't happen. All right, everything's all
Those-
better now. All right, don't tell mom.
Those damn Nazis in their camps.
Yeah,
Our camps were they weren't that bad.
yeah. I know. They were just
Ask
they were
George
just they were
Takei.
just held against their will. No big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also this before we like get into the actual movie, I just wanted to point out how a lot of people thought this was an anti-British movie.
Oh, because the American kind of comes back and
Yeah,
is like almost seen as a protagonist now.
well, I mean, and not to give too much of the plot away, but certain aspects of some of the British characters,
jolly
def-
good.
they were they were saying jolly good in a way that wasn't congruent with the actual. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can see what you mean because it's almost like, you know, I was just doing what I was told, sort of thing. With again bringing it back to the Nazi Germany
Yeah.
when they have those the Nuremberg trials,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not an acceptable excuse in war is to just do what you're told.
Right.
You can't
Yeah,
you can't commit war crimes just because your commanding officer told you to.
yeah,
You'd have to accept your fate and be killed if that was the case. You know, if that was what they would choose to do, and that's his fault, not yours. You know, that's his bad. But
so yeah, there.
it was a complex character, Nicholson, Colonel Nicholson.
Yeah. So there was definitely a lot of people in at the time were like, this is anti-British, like not only because like the American main character, but because of the decisions made by the other British actors.
Well, the troops that were coming in to blow up the bridge at the end.
Spoilers. I'm just kidding. So what it was is it was the fact that these the colonel, not the colonel, the mate.
What is it, Tyler?
Sure.
It was God damn it! I think it was Alec Guinness's character.
Nicholson.
I think it was
Okay.
Alec Guinness's character. So he was.
He's Colonel Nicholson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he, I mean, especially like at the end, it was definitely could be portrayed as anti-British because essentially he turns.
Well,
to
it's I wouldn't say he turns. It was just like he has this sense of pride for this bridge that he's been building for 12 weeks, and he's sort of, I mean, he's following the rule book throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
that's his thing. Is that the Geneva Convention and the Saito?
Yeah.
it's like-
He's like rules. There are no rules.
Fuck your rules.
Those are rules of cowardice.
Yeah.
So
Which Saito was an interesting character too.
yeah, so that there was definitely like so this movie, it was just, I mean, especially with the ending too and like the subject matter, it felt like, I think people I don't want to speak for the general public at that time, but my opinion of like kind of researching like how it was released, it seemed as though that people were wanting a epic war film to feel good about. but in the end, after
yeah.
Almost like a puff piece.
exactly, and then in the end, they watch it and they're like, "Oh, this
I
is
feel like
this
that's
is depressing."
I feel like that's how war should make you feel, though, because I mean, war is depressing.
Hell.
War is hell.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
war
that's why I love this
There
movie.
are no winners in war. I mean, despite what you may. Read
I'm
in
just
your
gonna
history
say it. I love this movie.
books. Oh God. Yeah, I'm glad you do though. That's good.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, what do you think,
I
Joseph?
don't love this movie.
What?
It's too long.
Wow.
There's a lot of stuff that probably didn't need to be in there.
Wow. I'm shocked.
Or scenes that just could have been shortened, because there's a lot of scenes that just sort of drag
Yeah.
on. There's a lot of scenes of silence. There's no dialogue, which is great for. There's a moments where it becomes too long. There are some shots in there that are really good. That are long takes, but then it just it crosses the line of, okay, now cut.
I got to the point where flash forward to Colonel Shears or Major Shears, the fake major, when he's in the medical ward on the beach in the tropical island, and you begin to see where the next step of the plot is going, and you're looking at your watch like, this is already 100 minutes into this movie, and they're just introducing this new plot, which is definitely going to take a lot of time to develop and come to fruition. And I'm sitting there watching it. I'm like, I've been watching this movie since 9 o'clock. It's 11:30. You still have 4 to go.
I disagree. I think this was the perfect amount of time for this movie, just because there is a lot of character development and plot development to be had with the statement that they were trying to make. With regarding, if we're talking purely about the ending, it was necessary for the ending to be impactful for this movie. There had to be a bunch of development of characters and plot, because it wouldn't have been as satisfying as it would have been if it.
I agree with that, but I think it could have been pared down quite a bit. A modern director with any sort of modern directing chops could probably squeeze this into, I don't know,
2 hours.
2 hour.
Yeah. Minute, 115 minutes, 120 minutes versus, you could have cut out 30 to 40 minutes out of it and still had the same effect, because you do need to have. Well, let's just go through the general plot, and I'll kind of go through it. So the plot is that a battalion or company of British soldiers get trucked into this POW camp in basically Burma, which is now Myanmar. And they're in the jungle, and they're being held captive by their Japanese war captors. And you see the only real person that you really care about at the beginning is Shears. He's a American Navy private, you find out later, who's pretending to be an officer. You don't find that out to the end of the movie, but he's basically been there for a long time. He knows how it is. He's been digging graves for all the POWs that have been there this whole time. And this kind of put together, cocky company of British soldiers march their way in, whistling the iconic do 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 do.
Yep.
And we talked about that song a few episodes back. Joseph, you mentioned this, and
It's in Spaceballs.
yeah, it's in space. Yeah, the dink dicks.
Ding.
And they're whistling this thing, and you're looking at them as they're coming into this POW camp, and Colonel Saito is this maniacal leader of this camp, and you just can read it on his face that he's just wants to break these guys.
But he seems very clumsy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He seems very defeated every interaction he has with Nicholson.
I feel like if it was played through a different nationality, that Japanese calmness you have to keep on the surface for the pride of your name or your family or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like right under the skin he's just like boiling with anger, but he never shows it. And he's just like, God
Yeah.
damn Brits, you know.
I hate the British. He does say that.
He does say it. It's that moment is a great moment. So they march in, and the first thing that Alec Guinness is, for anyone who is, the name
This was
sounds
a
familiar,
interesting Star
Obi-Wan
Wars
Kenobi.
prequel.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, weird. It's set on Dagobah, which I don't think Obi-Wan ever makes it to Dagobah.
Run to Dagobah.
So he basically reminds Colonel Saito of the Geneva Convention that officers are not to be used in manual labor.
Yeah.
And he basically slaps him in the face and says, fuck your rules.
Yeah.
What laws? This is war, This
Fuck
is
the
laws
Geneva Convention. What the hell?
Yeah, exactly. And he marches off all of the soldiers, and the British officers are left there standing, and they're basically about to get mowed down by a Gatling gun. And
oh man, that was such a good scene though, because it was an uncomfortable amount of time where you're watching these men, and for context, they're actually in India in like the middle of I can't remember at what time they were filming, but it was like in a pretty oppressive, humid.
Yeah.
And so these actors are actually sitting out there in under the sun in costume. So you really, for someone like me, like I notice that like they're actually like on location. So the uncomfortable aspects that they're portraying like is real. And it definitely put a perspective on the point of the scene that it was trying to be made was, like they're not going to move until they can get what they want. And then even one of them just collapses.
Well, they're left there standing all day as their company goes and does manual labor, and you have to imagine they're probably doing a 12-hour day, and they come back at the end of the day, and they're still standing there, save the one that collapsed. And you're like, which is better, to go out and work or stand here in the sun and get your completely destroyed by heat exhaustion? So after that happens, Saito basically takes him into his quarters. The colonel beats the hell out of him, and then goes and drags him into the hot box. They go put him in this like one-man isolation chamber made out of tin siding, and leaves him there for, you find out later, it's been like 3 weeks.
I was gonna say the makeup they did on the colonel when he eventually comes out was really good.
Yeah, he looks like a zombie.
He looks pretty gnarled up.
Yeah.
But they don't do a great job of like explaining how much time has passed so much. Like they just, as a like offhanded comment that we wasted a month on this unfortunate squabble that was not my fault. But you find that out later after he's already out of the hot box, and you're like, Jesus Christ, he's in there for a month.
The gravity of how long he's been there, it like is missed.
Yeah,
it's like
that was a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But every time you see him though, while he's in it, like when he gets visited, or when he finally comes out at the end, he just looks like he looks like he's in a black and white movie on his own, like because he's very, very pale, and he looks like he's dead.
He looks like he was actually in that oven for a month. Like the directors were like, "All right, you just sit in here for a month now."
Yeah.
And the everything you need to know about his character, you find out through his fortitude during that time in the oven, because one of the Saito's confronted, Colonel Saito's confronted by this medic. I think he's another British fella.
Yeah, it was someone. His name was Nipton. I know I know that much. It was Major Clipton, actually.
Clipton. The doctor.
Yeah,
he's a doctor. So he goes and convinces him to basically. Saito says, "Well, go talk to Nicholson. Tell him that if he doesn't give up this brigade that he's doing. I'm gonna close the prison, or not the prison, close the hospital, and I'm gonna make all these injured people go out and take the place of all his officers that don't want to work.
Yeah.
And they're basically probably gonna die, and their blood is gonna be on his hands. So he goes out there and they open the oven up. It's the first time you see him. It's been a week, and he gives them water. He gives them some coconut juice. Gives them a little bit of rations, and he tells them, what's better, your officers dying here in the oven with you, or out? You probably have a better life out working. And he says, "Don't you see it's the principle?"
Oh God!
And you're like, damn, the balls of this guy.
I know.
I mean, he doesn't. He never does. Was there ever a moment where he caves?
No, he never caves.
Yeah.
No,
It's amazing.
he doesn't cave, but I would argue at the very end of the film he does.
Well, he lost. I mean, you could argue that he loses his sense of what he's actually doing, because Clifton even tells him, it's like, this could be seen as like treasonous what we're doing.
Yeah,
we're
Building
aiding
the bridge.
we're aiding the enemy.
So,
Yeah, and his reasoning behind his moralistic view of it makes sense though, because he's like, this war is going to end one day, and when it does, this bridge is going to be used to transport food and medical supplies for the locals.
That's longevity, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see what his train of thought is, but also I feel like
No pun intended.
Yeah, I feel like ultimately he's driven more of his own success and his feeling of grandeur that he gets from overcoming this unsurmountable adventure.
He doesn't really have an arc.
No.
He's kind of steady the whole time.
Well,
until the very end.
At first, I thought he was gonna have a bit more of an importance to the movement of the plot. Because it kind of seemed like at this point in the movie where there's an escape attempt that happens after.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
It was shortly after he gets out of the oven or beforehand.
It's right before, yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. I think it's the same night that he gets put in the oven.
And so, yeah, exactly. So the American escapes, and the Japanese soldiers, they're hunting them down, and he falls off a cliff very
dramatically.
Very Metal Gear Solid like, and he eventually gets back to wherever there's some British hospital.
Well, he lands in a village.
Yeah,
he
lands. They make him a raft. They send him on his way, and you find out later that the seaplane of the British forces spot him out in the open water.
And he drinks that dirty ass water in like the river too, and I'm just like, don't do it, dude, don't do it.
So that was before, right? He gets saved.
Yeah, that's before he gets saved.
Okay.
He's on the river.
Yeah.
So I see that scene where he drinks the water, and then I look down and I look up, and he's like on a tropical island on a beach, and I'm like, is this a dream? I thought it was a dream, honestly. And then,
yeah,
but I was like, and then I was like, this is a really long dream sequence.
It does kind of seem like a dream sequence because he's with his woman on the beach.
Yeah,
and then
before martini out of a canister.
And then before you know it, the movie's over, and you're like, oh wow, the whole movie was a dream sequence. He just died. That's really what happened.
You blink, and 2 hours later, the movie's over.
You could say that it is dream-like because he's like enjoying all this stuff, and then the guy's like, well, we need you to go back. Mm-hmm. And so it's like,
you're
what?
Crazy.
So it could be seen that way. Now he's gotta go back to where he just escaped from.
That's a kick in the teeth. That sucks.
Yeah. But also that's when you realize that he's like, oh, you're not an officer, and then so the British commander, major, colonel, lieutenant guy, is like, well, actually, we know exactly who you are.
I thought that was such a good exchange in dialogue too, because he was like begging. He's like, oh wait, no, I'm not a commander. I'm just some second-rate piece of shit that just took some of dead guy's clothes.
Yeah.
And then the guy was like, oh yeah, we already know. And he just like let him embarrass himself, and
And they got permission from the U.S. Navy to basically take possession of him. He's now the British Navy's property.
Yeah, and then you know who
Oh my God.
you know who approved that? Like when he found out like the situation, he was just like, "Oh yeah, fuck that guy. Use him whatever you want."
Oh, that guy's a dick.
The British commander, major captain, fucking guy.
Major Warden.
He delivers all of that information so casually. Like, well, actually, haha, isn't that hilarious? Here you go.
And I think that's where the British culture like starts to pop into this movie too, is because like I mean I thought it was really funny, but it wasn't. Yeah, it wouldn't be impactful to an American audience, but in a British audience, I feel like they would be like dying.
I don't think so. I think that's just how they deliver their cadence. I mean, that's how their cadence is in that part of the world, in that like part of civilization too. It's an officer, you know, British officer has a certain air about him, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, you know that. Remember that small cameo that Mike Myers had in *Inglourious Bastards*? That's what it reminded me of the whole time.
Really?
Oh yeah.
He's very.
That's a good parallel.
And it's like his character in that movie was so comical, but it's like a direct representation of this from the mid 1950s of the way British people were talking, and they were actual British actors. They weren't Americans putting on an accent.
Oh, I just want to say before like, so I know we're like on the island right now plot wise. That whole sequence of him with the nurse could have been taken out. So I agree with you there.
Everything about it was almost like he was in this buddy comedy movie where it was like
it becomes a different movie.
Yeah, like a Marilyn Monroe movie, like Some Like It Hot, where he's a playboy and he's living on the beach.
Yeah, that definitely could have been taken out, because Commander Shears wasn't even like, although he was kind of the main character, like he was only a device to move the plot forward. He wasn't like the star.
The other British officers are like walking up to his facility and they see the nurse leaving early in the morning. And they like do a double take, like, did she just come from his quarters?
That would have been enough. That literally would have been enough for that.
It's just too. Yeah. It's all too much.
Well, then
cut it out.
Can you say then that the whole point, the whole part of his character of him faking being a major, could that part of the whole movie been taken out as well?
Well, probably could have. I think that's probably a little more critical to his character.
It could have been taken.
Depth.
I think it could have been. Yeah, it definitely could have been taken out. It would still have been a good movie, but I appreciated it because it was just another layer into this movie that kind of, I don't know. I'm a slut for character development and
well, there's backstories and there's depth. It just added depth to the character. Yeah,
it was kind of a neat little twist. It was an unimportant twist, but it was kind of just like it was entertaining to know that Commander Shears wasn't this like, you know, this American hero. He was just some schlub from the Navy.
I felt like that was probably the most crucial part of that character, was that he's not shown or portrayed to be this pure American hero, which makes it seem so ridiculous that people at the time would think this is anti-British, because if it was anti-British, it was just as much anti-American. You know, the only American they really highlight is a guy who jumped ranks.
Yeah.
Which, you know, and then doesn't want to go back into war, and he's like,
stolen valor.
I'm a civilian at heart.
Valor.
Yeah. So Saito is sticking to his guns. Nicholson's sticking to his guns. And there's a point in the movie when he basically takes his foreman off of the bridge production and says, "I'm just gonna personally oversee bridge construction." And on the first day, a giant section of the bridge collapses, and he just like stares off into the river, doesn't say a word. And it was like a Farrelly Brothers comedy almost. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was pretty. I felt bad for Saito too, especially later in the movie.
I expected the music from Curb to start playing.
Yeah, because like the whole movie, I feel like there's no respect for Saito.
No,
He just he's not. He's not intimidating. There's nothing.
And-
There's nothing about his character. He doesn't do anything that shows like you better behave or we're gonna throw you in this hot box. Like that's the extent of his severe punishment.
Yeah.
Even though other than they beat the shit out of you in the punishment hut.
They allude that they've killed multiple people before those troops showed up, but you just never see it.
Yeah.
But the failure of that is followed by a midnight dinner between Nicholson and Saito, which is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah.
He sits down. He's been in this hot box for a month. He's in his personal quarters. He offers them food and a red label scotch and a cigar.
Which is the last thing you would want.
Yeah.
After being starved for a month.
Yeah, and he refuses all of them. And he says, Saito starts backpedaling heavily. And he goes, officers with the manual labor, I never met you, just the people below you. And he replies, he says, Colonel Saito, I just want you to know that I intend to file a complete report on your leadership of this camp when I return home. And you're like, Jesus Christ, dude's going to kill you.
When I return home.
Yeah. And then he says, okay, so I've actually been thinking about it, and I've decided that just colonel and above, no manual labor. Only your junior officers will be on manual labor. And he says, no, none of my officers will be on manual labor per the Geneva Convention. He's basically still sticking to his guns. First time he's been sitting in upright position, and nonetheless inside an oven for a month. And then Saito reveals something to him. He says, do you know what happens if I don't finish this bridge on time? I have to kill myself.
As is tradition with anything.
Yeah, exactly. And then he says, Colonel Nicholson, what would you do if you were in my position? And he says, I'm afraid I'd have to kill myself.
Yeah, I love
cheers
that
to
line.
That. And then he drinks the scotch.
Yeah.
I love that line because it definitely showed how Saito and the colonel were they were on the same level.
Yeah.
They did have some parallels, yeah, which you see later on when production falls behind under Nicholson's command.
Nicholson's the whole you will not command my army or my men to go to manual labor. So he is like, this is like in the beginning when they first arrive, and Saito's like, so go do your job. He tries to tell them, and then they don't move, and then Nicholson tells them, he tells his junior officer, take the men to the bridge, and then they all go, and it's undermining Saito's right in front of him, Nicholson you're the prisoner of war, you are almost like a slave to Saito, and yet you're overtaking command in a sense.
He won't give into it though, because I think part of it too is there's a if you ever watch any Monty Python, they poke a lot of fun at the British officer class, and they make all these jokes about how they are so detached from war, even though they're on the battlefield. There's a great scene it's the Zulu. They're fighting the Zulu tribes in Africa in this British, and this is a Monty Python sketch. And all the officers are walking across the field, sipping tea, and they in their tent with powdering their makeup and stuff. And one of the officers has his leg ripped off by a tiger, and he's in bed. And the doctor comes to look at it and is like, "Oh, what do we have here? Oh, it seems I must have been bitten by something." And he goes, "Oh yes, I'm thinking a multicellular organism, something large and ferocious like a tiger." And he goes, "So then what? It'll just grow back then?" And he's like, "I'm afraid to tell you that it most likely won't grow back." And it's just poking fun at how stupid the officer class is and how pig-headed and stubborn they are.
Yeah.
I mean it makes sense in this context, but my best line, hands down, the whole movie is when they're in this midnight dinner, and he says, "I don't know if you're aware of this, but the bridge is under my personal command." And Nicholson says, "Well, are you satisfied with the work thus far?" I am not. I hate the British.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
So at one point in the movie, though, so like we're kind of like in the halfway point at this point, and they start focusing on the commandos that are traveling with the Thai people, and
Yeah.
they're going through the forest.
They're going back to the bridge.
Yeah.
Well, you don't really find that out until after Saito caves and lets Nicholson and all the officers free, tells them they don't have to work, and Nicholson basically takes charge of the whole operation, restructures it, tells Saito they need to move it up 400 yards upriver because his engineer, second in command, who's built many bridges, says that their place they're going to build the bridge is in a stupid area.
It's too soft.
Yeah, it's too soft. They basically start from scratch. The whole
They have 12 weeks,
officers
I
meeting
think. Yeah.
that evening in Saito's quarters. You can see like the defeat on Saito's face as the end of the meeting happens, and they're still talking about the logistics of it. And he's just like, "Can we get to work? Jesus Christ!"
Yeah.
He doesn't say it, but it's written all over his face.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately, he relinquishes command essentially to Nicholson, Alec Guinness' character, and they start this operation. And not only does it go as smoothly as they could imagine, but he also increases the daily quota for amount of like earth moved by his people. Like he's taking them to task, and he's like, we're gonna get this done. And
his reasoning too was so convincing. Like when Clifton is asking him like, why the fuck are we doing this like for them, and he's just like, we're stuck here, and we like, do we want to show the Japanese that like we have a broken spirit and like we can't do anything? No, we're gonna do the best job we can do, because that's literally all they have right now is building a perfect bridge. Doesn't matter who is it for.
That's when he's talking to the doctor, right?
Yeah. Clifton is the doctor.
He does have a great line when he looks at Clifton. He says, "If you had to operate on Saito, would you do your best or perform poorly and let him die?" And Clifton thinks for a second, and you could tell it's an actual thought in his head. But for Nicholson, it's like, well, of course I'd do my best on him, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I feel like as a doctor, that would be your, doctor working on a war criminal. That would be a very easy way to take a leg up on the war. Just kill him right there.
That's the thing with this movie too, is I was a lot more emotionally invested in the prison camp than the commandos going into there to save him.
Oh yeah, I didn't care about those people.
Yeah.
The only thing I cared about with the commandos coming in was their relationship with the Siamese women, because they looked like they were falling in love.
Yeah, and
which never it's just like a little subplot that
just a
doesn't
little
matter.
tiny bit and comes and goes.
Yeah, which kind of actually also speaks to the temporariness of being in wartime, especially at that time too, because like you're always constantly moving, you're always going from place to place, and so like these times of affection, so to speak, to the locals is just so brief. And I thought that was realistically done, but as for a movie, it could have been
paced a lot faster.
Yeah. So at this point, though, we're at. I'm pretty sure that the commandos are landing. They're already landing in India.
Yeah, the bridge.
We're at the bridge now.
The plan is that these international forces, one Canadian youngster, a couple British officers, and this American Navy Valor thief comes in, and they're basically going to plant plastic explosives at the base of the bridge. They have intel that there's going to be a train coming in that's going to be like the inaugural trip across the bridge on the railway, and it's going to be full of Japanese dignitaries and higher ups. So they're gonna plant it and blow it up.
What was the train full of?
Japanese dignitaries.
Oh, I thought it was British soldiers, because remember,
No.
well,
They all march across the bridge.
well, yeah,
British soldiers come across the bridge, but that's the whole point, is that they're like they could plant them plant the explosive and just blow it any time, but they wanted to plant it and then wait for this train to come across because it would get a bunch of these higher up ranking officials in the Japanese army.
All right, so that was my I thought so. I don't want to jump to the ending, but I thought that I thought that the train was full of like the injured and disabled prisoners of war. That's what I thought it was.
They mentioned that's the train gonna go out after the train gets there.
Oh,
It's
okay.
gonna take
Okay.
the people in the hospital and train them over to the next work camp.
All right.
So they build this bridge. It comes out amazingly on the other side. It actually does look like a pretty impressive bridge for a bunch of manual laborers.
They actually did build that bridge. Like that bridge was built by people in
They
IRL.
really destroyed it.
They actually destroyed. They only had one shot.
Yeah. Well, no, they have two shots actually. It was.
What do you mean?
It was two. So the bridge explosion failed. So the first shot they were trying to get of the bridge explosion failed because the train derailed. And so
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, so
Oh.
they had to fix the train like in 24 hours. And so they fixed the train and they did it again, and then they got the successful shot.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Well,
Trivia.
Colonel Nicholson says, I hope that those who use this bridge years after the war is over remember who's built it. Not a group of slaves, but a proud British battalion.
They're, wait, when does he say that?
He said he's talking to the doctor.
Oh, okay.
The doctor right before he asks if he's going to operate on Saito, if he would do his best or not.
So there's this. So Nicholson has this good monologue when he's on the bridge and he's talking to Saito, I believe.
After it's totally done, they put the plaque up.
Yeah. He's like leaning on the railing on the bridge, and he's talking about like your life and everything you do in your life. Is it meaningless? Is it meaningful? He's just like asking himself questions, basically, having a philosophical conversation with Saito. And the way it's shot is really interesting, because it's just from behind Nicholson. It's just this one kind of tracking shot of him talking, and he's like framed in between the beams of the bridge, with the river going underneath him, and you have like the sun
Saito's
setting,
standing behind him watching his back.
And I thought that was a really nice moment in the movie. Like,
It definitely made me think too, because what Colonel Nicholson was saying, he was just like, I've been in the service for like 28 years, and I've only been home for 10 months combined.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy shit, like that means this dude has no life other than his job. And
so he's committed to doing the best job he can, because that's all he knows.
That's all he has, really. And so that was a real impactful moment for that character. And that's actually when I thought the movie started like paying off in the development of their characters. Was
2 hours and 22 minutes in.
Yeah, exactly.
It really starts paying off.
I mean, it does pay off. That's for sure. It does pay off.
Well, so where are we now? We're right before the bridge explosion.
Yes, they have a night of an entertainment where the troops get together and have this surprisingly elaborate entertainment where they build a mini version of the bridge on this little stage, and they have wigs and outfits and dance routines, and
that's what I said in my notes too. I was just like, this is really well choreographed. Like,
it's a good production.
Yeah. They're like, boss, can we take like 3 weeks off to get ready for the entertainment? All right, I'll allow it.
We need the party planning committee.
It was like the rendition of Simple Jack in
I know. That's what I thought of when that came out. I was like, this is just from Tropic Thunder. This is just Simple Jack.
So that while that's happening, the little special forces team swim upriver on a raft and plant the plastic explosive, which was a super tense scene when there's a couple patrolmen on the bridge right above them, and they're basically planting all these plastic explosives on the pylons that mount this bridge.
I don't know if you guys noticed this though too. Is every tense scene in this movie had no music in it whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no music in the bomb planting scene.
It's all
or the the day of when they're supposed to blow it.
Yeah, all the tense scene, all the quote unquote tense scenes that the director wanted to portray as tense, he purposely made it so that there was no music whatsoever in those scenes. It was only the sounds of nature.
Yeah, very quiet. It also made it kind of boring. We're on the last scene or the last moments of the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It
is last scene, yeah.
So this is the day. It's gonna happen today.
Demo day.
What we've been waiting for, basically, because I mean, going to this movie, I knew they were gonna blow it up at the end, just because I've known that, since I've heard about this movie. But when this movie was released, was it marketed like, oh, the goal of this movie is that they're gonna blow up the bridge that they spent building this entire movie?
I think that was like their goal. The protagonist's goal was to blow the building up or blow the bridge up.
So we're at this scene, this pinnacle moment, and I just think it was the stupidest shit ever.
Oh shit!
It was so
Damn, dude.
Because it was tense, but it was stupidly tense, because it's just push the button, just do it, just
there was
there's
British soldiers on there, dude.
But even after,
already gone.
Even after they're gone, you had this guy who's just the guy who's for context, the guy, he's like, I can't kill anybody. Like, he thinks killing is wrong, right? So that's his own little tiny personal arc, which I think was sort of not, there was no point to it, I don't think, because at the end he just runs up and stabs Saito in the back, and then he dies in an anticlimactic fashion.
Yeah, really, I felt like Saito deserved much better death.
Yeah, and then he's floating in the water face down.
Dude,
yeah. He should have at least had a up close of his face as he died or something.
So, what's his name? Nicholson. He sees the wire, right? Wrapped around the
rock and the
bridge
pillars and stuff.
And he's like, something odd is going on here, and and then he goes to the wire. He's trailing it back to the source, and everybody is watching him do this. The guy with the charge is watching him do this. He sees Saito and Nicholson coming towards him.
What the fuck?
And
what the fuck is he
me
doing?
and Deanna were like, just do it. Just blow it. Just blow it up now. What are you waiting for?
I was saying that out loud too. I was like, blow the bridge. Blow the bridge. Blow the bridge. Just blow the bridge.
All right, do it now. Okay, he's getting closer.
You know what I thought? The only thing that I felt was motivation to not blow it immediately was the fact that
the train.
You could actually hear the train.
If
the device of the whistling of the train chugging down the tracks, and they knew, they probably could have done a little bit better job of emphasizing who was on the train and how that was important to the war.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if they're or if they said, remember, kid, do not blow, whatever you do, don't blow this train or don't blow this explosives until the train's on here.
Yeah.
Or else they're just gonna build it back next 2 months from now, and it's not gonna mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but you're right, it was frustrating.
There was no way to communicate to the kid in charge of the charge.
Yeah.
Because he says himself, we can't wait for the train. We got to blow it now.
Mm-hmm. And they can't say that to him.
There's no way to signal him. You can't wave your hands.
I feel like he should have shot off that mortar right then.
I know, right?
Mortar off at the bridge.
That was the whole point of that, was the distraction.
But that was
exactly.
But that was the kind of the beauty of it all, though, is that this is what made it a pretty realistic special forces operation. Is that it was
because the clusterfuck.
It was just exactly. It was a clusterfuck. No one really knew. Everyone was kind of just ad-libbing at this point, as far as in the story, not in real life.
Improvising.
Everyone's improvising. Everyone is
the Canadian kid kills Saito,
Yeah.
and then him and Nicholson are
That's
sparring back and forth, and everyone's like in like to themselves or shouting, kill him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then at one point Shears just goes, kill him.
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, they blew their cover. Should have done that earlier.
Yeah, because so they get into a fight, a little scuffle, and then all the soldiers are coming down, and then it's raining down mortars, and
bullets is flying everywhere.
So Shears gets shot as he's running towards him, and then the mortar. So Nicholson kills. Oh no, the kid gets shot as he's fighting. Somehow, the kid got shot and not Nicholson, which was I was like, that's a little stretchy there. It's a little like, how does he only get shot but not anyway? So he gets killed, and then Nicholson stands up and he's like slowly, extremely agonizingly slowly realizing what's happening.
Yeah.
And then once he realizes,
he says, what have I done?
And then the mortar comes down and then like shell shocks him, and then it's like at this point he's like, oh my god, he's getting up so slowly. And then he like, we're like, okay, he's right there, he's gonna push a charge, he's gonna do it, he's gonna push it, and then he like turns around,
He falls on
and it's like, what are you doing? And then he just and then he just falls on it, which was I don't know, it was like, that's how it blows it up. He just falls on it.
See,
well, I think he pushed. I think he was intentionally. It wasn't an accident. Like he, as with his last dying urge, he fell onto the charge.
Yeah, that's what I got from it too. Is I thought that. So what I thought was he got hit by the mortar, and I think that he had shrapnel in the back of his head, because I mean, you can barely see it, but you can kind of see it in one of the shots that there's like red in the back of his head.
Really?
So you can assume that he had gotten hit by shrapnel.
Yeah.
And so he's, I mean, obviously that's not realistic, but for the sake of the story, he is hit with shrapnel, he's dying. And I think what it was is, as he was blacking out, he was like, I want to hit this plunger, because he realized that he was going against his country.
Yeah.
So he wanted to redeem himself, and he kind of does, I suppose. This is what I love about the movie, though. The ending is not satisfying.
No, it's not satisfying at all.
I'll forgive the slow plotting pace of that final scene, only because we already sat through 2 hours and 25 minutes worth. What's another 15? You know.
Yeah, and that
it could have been a 7-minute long scene, but it ended up being 15.
So one of my favorite things about movies is unsatisfying endings. Like, good movies that have unsatisfying endings are good to me. Especially because when we're dealing with a war movie too, because there's really no satisfying ending to any war story. You know, like, even if you're listening to your grandpa's war story about World War II or Vietnam or some shit, the ending of that story is not satisfying, because the ending is he's sitting in front of you with all of this PTSD about this story.
Yeah.
So for the bridge on the River Kwai to, you know, not only Nicholson's bridge gets destroyed after it's a work of passion, he also betrays his country. Everyone kind of dies. It's a tragedy that happened, and that's what it is. It's not satisfying. It's not happy. And for this movie, I really appreciated the directors and the producers going in the direction of a not satisfying ending, because in the end, war is hell, and war is not, no one wins in war. Regardless of which side has a victory, no one wins morally. And that's kind of what this movie was portraying, I feel, in the end. The point was that no one wins. Despite all of this effort, no one wins.
Yeah, it's a shitty outcome to a shitty situation. full of shitty decisions.
Very realistic.
I mean, it was just so frustrating because I spent 2.5 hours watching this movie, and then this is the ending I get.
Well, you have to think it was a sign of the times, though, too. Like, like movies were, like, I mean, yeah, Infinity War was an event in recent times, but, like, I feel like movies back in the 50s, like, you wanted to get your, like, nickel's worth. So.
Yeah. I would not have gotten my nickel's worth if I saw this.
Oh, shit.
Well, all I can say is you're welcome.
There's just a lot of stuff that didn't need to be in there, and then the payoff, which is not really a payoff, it's just like a series of bad events, and kind of like almost like dramatic irony on Nicholson's part, because it's like how do you not realize that this is bad? What you like this bridge? The meaning of the bridge is aiding the enemy.
But that's the beautiful part about it, Joseph.
But he's too prideful.
Exactly. Character development.
But it's bad.
It made you feel something.
I have mixed feelings about Nicholson's approach to it all, because his troops were in a better place because of it. You could see how the conditions were better, the morale of the troops was better when they were all done, the night of entertainment. Granted they were having fun because of the entertainment, but it wasn't like they kind of lead you to believe that the condition of everything improves because they're all doing a job well done.
Yeah.
Which is a little glib and a little just a little too perfect, which is one of the criticisms of the time, because the people who were involved with this bridge, this is a true story, or some of it.
Some of it. I mean, the story is true, but the events that happened regarding the bridge are a lot more morbid.
Sure. And yeah, the people that were involved with the actual bridge at that labor camp said their conditions were nothing close to as good as what the movie portrays.
Yeah.
The Japanese were not as nice to them as they leave you to believe in the movie.
Yeah.
And it was at the end of the day, it's just a Hollywood movie representing a historical event, which is always bastardized in one way or the other.
True.
It was like watching MASH.
Yeah. But I mean, anybody who's had a
If you loved On the Bridge of River Kwai, you'll love MASH. Man, so that's what I like about the film, though, is like it doesn't shy away from the depressing themes of this plot.
Well, it's kind of like MASH, where
it is kind of like MASH, actually.
Because it all comes back to MASH.
It all comes back to MASH.
It's very depressing, right?
Yeah.
But like at the end of the movie, they play like this like parade song. It's very triumphant almost. But also like MASH, the theme song. You guys know what the title of the name of the theme song for MASH is?
No, what is it?
Suicide is Pain.
What? Are you serious? That's what it's called?
That's what the theme song title is called. Suicide is Pain.
Dude.
It's such a calm sounding song.
Yeah, it is, right? But that's the title.
You're blowing my mind, man.
And MASH is a sitcom.
Well,
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, man, the theme song to a sitcom is "Suicide is Pain." Like, that's
Well, to give you an idea of the other movies that were made around
I'm sorry,
this
not
era,
Suicide is Pain. Suicide is Painless. That's what it's called.
Oh,
there you go.
well, that's still
even better.
That's I was
still pretty deep.
So this potentially being labeled as like a propaganda piece or some sort of political activism piece. Other movies released around the same time to give you an idea of like the pulse of American cinema at the time.
Yeah.
12 Angry Men.
I like that movie.
Another supposedly great one. I haven't seen that one yet. It's on my list. Maybe that will be on the wheel this week.
Ooh.
Maybe. It's a one room movie.
Yeah. Limited storytelling.
Yeah.
The original 3:10 to Yuma.
Oh God.
Paths of Glory, A Face in the Crowd. Old Yeller, the original one.
Old Yeller.
Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock.
Ooh.
Sophia Loren's Boy on a Dolphin, Gunfight at the OK Corral, The Incredible Shrinking Man science fiction movie, and The Curse of Frankenstein. Yeah, not a whole lot of like heavy stuff besides maybe 12 Angry Men, but that's like affecting one person.
Yeah.
One person's life, you know, whether the verdict goes one way or the other. And one that I'm curious if Tyler's ever seen it. It's where is this one at? There's another crazy sci-fi movie. Where is it?
I was gonna say I saw the 310 to Yuma for our previous episode.
The Monster That Challenged the World. A 1957 science fiction monster movie about an army of giant mollusks that emerges from California's Salton Sea. It's like a creature feature with giant mollusks.
No, I have not seen that, but that sounds amazing. I really should get into my 50s sci-fi horror films
Oh man,
list.
the cover art for this looks so great.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that. But I did see 310 to Yuma, the original.
Yeah.
And that, as I have said in our 310 to Yuma episode, it is the weaker of the films. I think the original 310 to Yuma is shit, and
So, in that theme, what director do you think would do this remake, The Bridge on the River Kwai, justice in 2019? I say Quentin Tarantino. I would love to see a absolutely bananas alternative history version of this movie.
I'm afraid Quentin Tarantino would be a little too extreme with the subject matter on this. I say...
That's the point.
Oh, okay. Well, if
I don't know.
Yeah, 'cause, you know, it's interesting that you bring that up because as I was watching this movie, I was like, this would be actually a good movie to remake because it has some.
I think so.
It has some questionable moral choices, very introspective thoughts.
I mean, of course, Steven Spielberg would probably do a good job. He's done some amazing war movies in their time.
Yeah, but this is too. It's not that big of a movie. Like, there's not many.
No.
It's like in one
like
location.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of traveling involved.
I mean, if I'm, man, I think Christopher Nolan really could handle.
Nolan would do a good job.
I think, and this is my reasoning
yeah.
for Nolan handling this is because he has experience directing big budgeted movies, and this movie would have to be a big budget. Like, there's no way that you could keep it contained within less than, I don't know. I'm not really sure on dollar figures, but Christopher Nolan. I feel like he's a good director to handle a big budgeted movie, because like handling a big budgeted movie, like that's like essentially handling like a huge ass operation, and his movies are entertaining. You know, Inception had a huge budget and it was thought provoking, and it had and star-studded cast. You know, I think if we're gonna remake The Bridge on the River Kwai to its fullest extent, I think Christopher Nolan is the director to make it happen, especially because you have these questionable moral themes as well.
Clint Eastwood, I think, could do a good job too.
Yeah, I think that would.
It falls right in line with his.
It would be right in his wheelhouse, and it would be even more politicized.
Yeah, maybe Clint Eastwood like 10 years ago.
Or Mel Gibson.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, Mel Gibson
yeah.
actually might do good.
They're like the same person almost.
At least Mel Gibson gets better
They're
performances
both like
out of his actors.
old racist
True.
people.
That's true. Actually, you know, I look forward to the next Mel Gibson film. I know he's a little bit controversial, but I really liked
Apocalypto.
Apocalypto. Yeah, that's what it was. Apocalypto. I was really into that movie. I mean, I know
It's an intense movie.
I mean, I know it's kind of older, but I mean,
It's solid.
it was solid.
He did Hacksaw Ridge. That was the last movie I saw of
Yeah.
his, which wasn't bad. It was kind of like a Christian movie though. Like a
Yeah, if he gets rid of his Christian like overtones in some of his films, like I think he has the potential to be.
He's making a sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
Did you really?
The Passion of the Christ, Resurrection.
Oh boy!
Reminds me of that.
Oh my god!
It reminds me of that Robot Chicken sketch where they do Schindler's List 2, Schindler's Pissed.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see Mel Gibson or Clint Eastwood directing. They could do a collaboration. They could both direct.
I still think Christopher Nolan would do a really good Bridge on the River.
Well,
Kwai.
if you watch Dunkirk, then I think it would further solidify that opinion.
There you go.
Because that's a World War II movie as well.
I haven't seen it. Waiting for the wheel to land on it.
I'm waiting for Christopher Nolan to do a Western.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah. Anyway, we're off topic now.
Well, I think we can wrap up this 2 hour and 40-minute long episode.
For sure.
We're almost at the 2 hour mark.
Yeah, pretty close. Tyler, what do you give this?
Yes.
What movie do you give this? 1 out of 5.
I would give it a 4 out of 5. I was surprisingly entertained throughout the whole movie. Although sometimes I did check the time to see like how long I had been watching this movie. I was just like, oh my god, I have fucking 27 minutes left. But
Yeah.
at the same time though, it definitely blew my expectation. I thought this was going to be like a Allied war glorification film,
Yeah.
but it was anything but that. It definitely was a lot more thought-provoking, and that's why it gets the 4 out of 5, because it had that ambiguous morality of it all in the end.
Yeah.
So, 4 out of 5 is definitely a classic movie.
Joseph?
I'm right down the middle with this one. 2.5 out of 5.
God.
Because it's too long.
What, do you hate art?
It is very intense in some parts, but it's also very, very boring in some parts. And it's intense, like the intensity is almost too tense to a fault, where it's like I'm waiting for it to happen. Like I know you get satisfaction out of having no satisfaction, Tyler. But there was nothing redeeming about the end of the movie for me. I was just, that's it? It's over? Well, I guess, I mean, I understand your points in that war is hell and that it's a matter of fact kind of point of view of war. I'm not really rooting for anybody. I'm like Nicholson, he's the hero, or the American, he's the hero. It's just like there's a good side and a bad side, and really neither of them in this situation win because everybody dies. So I understand that point of view, but it's just kind of, at the end of the movie was kind of like, it was boring and not exciting because it was like watching like a documentary on a documentary war film.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah.
But yeah, it is very entertaining in some parts, and the interactions between Saito and Nicholson are really interesting and well written. But there's also a lot of uninteresting things about it as well.
I can agree with that.
What about you, Pete? What would you rate this movie?
I'm gonna put myself in 1957 mode and give it 4 stars. But in 2013, it's a 3-star movie or 2019, it's a 3-star movie for me. So wow. I was entertained enough, and I was thinking, this is pretty impressive a movie for 1957. But if I was thinking to myself, this is a pretty impressive movie, that it would be given a different rating for me. There are movies that hold up. I don't know if this necessarily holds up. You know, there's movies like Citizen Kane where you have to hold reverence over it and think, man, this was so game-changing at the time. But in, modern day when you're watching it, you're like, all right, I could be watching Chris Angel Mind Freak on Fubo or on Pluto right now. You know, some real art. But so I know I'm glad I watched it. There was a lot of great scenes. There's more scenes like Saito and Nicholson interacting with each other, a little bit less dragging out and a little bit more to the point with the emotions. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more. All that being said, I don't regret watching it. So 3 stars from me.
I hope they do remake this movie because there is a lot to be said, especially in modern times now where we're in like this perpetual wartime. Mm-hmm. I think The Bridger on the River Kwai would be a really good thought piece on the sign of the times, essentially. Uh-huh.
Well, glad you guys were able to experience this with me. Sorry to take 2 hours and 40 minutes of your guys' life away, but hey, that's showbiz, baby.
You take 2 hours from me on the movie, and now you take 2 hours away from me recording this shit.
Yeah, we're coming on almost 5 hours worth of our life. We'll never get back.
Yeah,
and the listeners too. We're glad you're here. All right, so we're gonna move on to the wheel now, and we got some stuff kind of in the works for the new year, or in the next time a wild card pick lands on the wheel.
Oh yeah.
That we've been talking about. So our faithful listeners that have been with us since the beginning and are still confused about what a wild card pick is, we're about to change it up a little bit.
Change is
about
a
to
coming.
Shake it up.
Okay, Bridge on the River Kwai, gone. And I'm replacing that with my new pick, Idiocracy.
Ha!
Oh, nice.
I just watched this like 2 weeks ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. Because Deanna hadn't seen it.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I've been meaning to rewatch it for quite some time. Ever since we had our last presidential election, it seems a lot more relevant. So I am looking forward to rewatching it. It's from 2006. It's directed by Mike Judge, the guy that did Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill, right, Tyler?
Yes, he was definitely the creator of King of the Hill.
He also did Extract, which was a little...
Oh, yeah, the Jason Bateman movie?
Yeah, and Office Space. I forgot about Office Space.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did do Office Space, yeah.
So, if you have no idea what Idiocracy is, but you like Office Space, give this one a whirl. It is painfully relevant in today's society.
Yeah.
So, in addition to Idiocracy, my other choice on the wheel is They Look Like People. And Tyler has Space Jam, The Blair Witch Project, and Escape from New York, his wild card pick.
I mean, if you couldn't already tell who I am as a person by those picks, then...
And then Joseph has The Machinist, Dunkirk, and A Place Beyond the Pines, which is his wild card pick.
Oh, man, I forgot A Place Beyond the Pines was on the wheel. I hope that gets on that one. I love that movie.
It's streaming right now. I saw it as I was looking for my streaming picks this week.
Yeah.
Okay. Wheel is spinning. In a rolling spin.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit, oh, fuck, oh, shit, oh, fuck, oh, shit, oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck.
The Blair Witch Project.
Oh.
Yes!
The original Blair Witch Project.
Wow.
Oh, my God. We're going to talk about this for 3 hours.
This 1 hour and 28-minute movie is going to be a 3-hour discussion.
Oh, man. I am so stoked. You can't... I don't know if this movie is streaming anywhere, so you're going to have to rent it, but it's worth the rent. And also, you have to watch this in the dark. You cannot watch this during the day. You have to, blind all of your windows. You have to watch this in the dark.
It's streaming on Amazon Stars.
On Stars? Does anyone even have a Stars subscription anymore?
And DirecTV.
You can rent it on Redbox for $2.
Ooh.
Yeah. Spend the $2 to watch this masterpiece in horror. Man, Yes.
This is a very divisive movie. There's a lot of people who hate
Yes,
this
it
movie.
is very
Yeah.
divisive, and F the haters. This movie is awesome.
I'm excited. I've never seen this.
Yeah, this is it's a very it's entertaining.
Oh
Very,
man,
I know what I'm getting into.
good. So cool.
All right. Next week, looking forward to it.
Sick.
Until next time, our listeners out there, send us an email. You have listening or listeners streaming selection picks. If you have movies that you want to see on the wheel, we're open to just about anything from our listeners.
Yeah,
If you
I
have-
can't reiterate enough. Like literally any comment, email, or whatever. We,
Put a word on.
We will read it.
iTunes rating. If you have make a note in Spotify. If you go to our Facebook page,
And we have an Instagram page up and running right now too.
What is that?
Instagram. We have a page on Instagram now.
No, I what's the name of the page?
What's Instagram?
Oh, it's you can follow us on Middle Class Film Class. That is the Instagram name, and
At Middle Class Film Class.
yeah, and I will respond to DMs because I am actually hosting this
Slide
page.
in.
Yeah, slide in those DMs. I already have a few DMs from a couple of spam porn accounts, and I replied to them, and I said we would love to have you on the show.
Those streaming pics are gonna be wild. So also email us at mcfcpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/mcfcpodcast. Like us on there. Share with your friends. We post all new episodes on the website, and the trailers for the movies we're going to be watching the next week get posted up there. Interact with us any way you see fit. We love hearing from our listeners.
Yes.
And until next time, we will see you when we break down the Blair Witch Project. Thanks for listening.
See you later, guys.
See you later.